How are you?
Morning, Ger. How you doing? How are you? How are things? Hi, Ashton.
You're just pulling up your list there, I presume. Where so just explain what the criteria here is, Tommy. We did this with Nathan. R.I.P. his mentions for the day when he left out James Ward-Prowse and a bunch of others. Who are you going to leave off? Is his standard Control A, Control C, Control V?
I have a very, 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 very important list of rules here, Jared, that I'm not going to break or defer from, and it's helped me a lot in putting this list together. I stuck it up on Instagram last night at 10 o'clock, and that was a bad idea. I got about 42 different suggestions, so I have a feeling there's going to be quite a few complaints off the back of this, but I have my rules and I'm sticking to them. So the top 10 footballers outside the top counties, which is essentially the top 10 footballers from the bottom two divisions, they're Division 3 and 4 teams only. I had thought about going with Owen Sheehan's power rankings, but then...
That was our rule. You had to go to power rankings. You're breaking this now, what?
It doesn't make sense.
You can't change it now.
It doesn't make sense that Westmeath are 15th, and Westmeath have literally one of the best players in the top two divisions. So I'm sticking to that. This is the rule of the list. Top two players in Division 3 and Division 4. So...
Well, it's not outside the top 10. Like, there's 8 plus 8 is 16. This is the top 10 players in the 16 worst counties.
Yeah, that's essentially it, yeah, in the bottom two divisions.
What happened? The top 10 is the top 10. It's nice symmetry. 10 from 10.
I was thinking more we go down the style of if there was a Tailteann Cup, these are the players that are gonna start.
Okay.
So,
but then the teams are going to get relegated from Division 2 are going to be in the Tailteann Cup, aren't they? Are they?
They are. It's going to be messy. It is. But, Ger, I needed rules and I needed a bit of a structure here. There's so many players to pick from. I needed to have a bit of structure. So let me just go through my rules. So have it on record, right? Division 3 and 4 teams only. So that's it. You could make an argument that Cavan really shouldn't be there. Cavan have 4 All-Stars that could have been in the mix here. I could only pick 2 players from a county. Max 2 players from a county. I had it very close. I had 9 players from a county. I was going to go for 10 players from 10 different counties, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. And they have to be in an inter-county squad for 2022, for the 2022 season.
So they can't have opted out. You're not picking...
No, so Michael Quinn would have been fairly high up in this list. Red Oak Murphy was sent on quite a bit. Red Oak Murphy is starting in the Sigerson as well, and he's not playing for Sligo this year, so he's a massive loss to Tony McEntee's side. But Sligo do have a player pretty high up on the list. So before I get into the list, would you mind if I give a shout out to a couple of players that were very, very close and were omitted at about 1 o'clock in the morning last night?
Okay, go on.
They sent you messages on Instagram, didn't they, Tommy?
They did, yeah. Well, no, this fella, I checked in. I actually checked in with a couple of sources around the country as well. There's a new feature we're starting on the Football Pod with Paddy and James called Jimmy's Sources. We just haven't got it out yet because James hasn't got solid enough info. But I did manage to check in with players and a couple of ex-players in different counties last night because I wanted to make sure that I was on the right path. And I was chatting to Conor McGrainer, who's playing his club football in Mayo this year, but would have played at Wicklow, would have won a Sigerson with DCU back in the day as well. And we had a bit of a back and forth about Mark Jackson, the Wicklow keeper. So, don't know if you've come across Mark Jackson before, but anyone who's played Wicklow and Leinster knows all about him. He's the type of footballer that's kicking 8, 10, 12, 15 points a season over the last 3 or 4 years from goals. A massive asset to have in Division 4, Division 3. I really wanted to get a goalkeeper in. I'm probably giving away that I haven't picked Raymond Galligan here, but I was really close to putting Mark Jackson into this list. He probably adds something to about 10 counties in the top 16, which says something, and that gives him bonus points. He's a big presence. He's still a young man. And I don't know if you've ever seen this clip, right? It's from a schools game. We're going to play it here now. There's a banging Niall Morgan off this fella. So this clip here, it's the most insane atmosphere. It's between St. Peter's of Enniscorthy in Wexford and Jackson's Wicklow school team. We'll have a look at about 25, 30 seconds here. He's about 16, 17 in this clip.
All right, here it comes. What are we looking for?
Just have a look at this now. Turn up the volume there a little bit.
We can hear it. And for our radio listeners, Tommy, what's happening?
Well, it's Mark Jackson lining up to take a massive free from about 30, 40 metres. And the abuse that's being directed his way. I love the celebration off the back of it. I just think there's a bit of Niall Morgan about him. And Jackson was very close to making the list. He didn't, going through some of the other counties that are in the mix. Laois, there's no one really standing up at the minute.
Oh my God, this is the longest build-up of all time. Go on, keep going.
Sorry. Evan O'Carroll could be there. He's not there at the minute, so Billy Sheehan probably looking for it. Kieran Lillis was close to making the list. A couple of Waterford shouts that we'll come back to later. Carlow don't really have anyone here. Wexford don't really have anyone, which is saying a lot. You know, Ben Brosnan is still one of the marquee names, 12, 13 years on, and just didn't make the cut here. In Leitrim, you've got a couple of players that I'd like to see how they get on this year under Andy Moran. You've got Keith Byrne, who impressed a lot in the county final last year. Ryan O'Rourke, who I know Johnny Doyle was a massive fan of in the Sigerson with Maynooth. Donald Rain, who won Sigerson's with DCU, and Paddy Maguire, who's always been a rock back there. But they just didn't make the cut for this top 10. And in Fermanagh, no one really ripping up trees at the minute. Sean Quigley is still one of the big names up there. They've had good forwards over the last couple of years, but nobody who's going to make this list. So let's get to it. Number 10, Liam Gavigan. Okay, Liam Gavigan is the London talisman. He is the captain. He's English born, the son of Irish parents, and he is the beating heart of this team. Now, don't give me any stick for this. London haven't played in 2 years, apart from at the weekend when Gavigan was one of the main players in their comeback. I just think it's an unbelievable story. He's their chief scorer. He's always delivered for them. He made his debut back in 2011 in that game where James Horan and Mayo nearly got caught by London.
Oh, yeah.
And like, he's their full forward. It's not like he's playing cornerback or midfield where maybe you can do a job without having the highest skill set in the country. But Liam Gavigan, he's English born, and I think it's a great story. He's the London captain, and he was described a couple of weeks ago in the Anglo-Celt by Kevin Egan, who's previewing Division 4 teams, and he said, Liam Gavigan plays with the style and the flair of a man from Carfin or Killarney. And I think that says a lot about him. You know, they were 10 points down to Carlow the other night and they came back and they won. I just don't think that can be underestimated how big a story it is for London. They've been missing from the last 2 years. They're back. They have a young London-born, the young coach, Michael Maher, is 32 years old. Mm-hmm. I just thought this quote the other day summed it up. He said, people have no idea what goes into giving your life to train and play for London. On a normal day, you drive from Dublin to Wexford and the time it takes these lads to get 20 miles across London to go training. They give it everything to do it, and I'm really proud of them. It's great that London are back in the championship. It's great that they're beating the likes of Carlow and coming back from 10 points, and they wouldn't be doing it without someone like Liam Gavigan. It's also brilliant that he's London born and just making a difference. But he is well earned his place. Top 10, number 10. Number 9, Mick Mccann. So I'm just going to go back through a little bit more of the criteria. I had a little bit more to do with it. There isn't that many kids in this list, Jaren Ashton. You know, turning up and doing it year on year is a massive part of this when you're playing in the lower counties. There's no great rewards for it. We heard Kevin McMiniman and James O'Donoghue talking over the last little while about, you know, it's difficult to retire and it's difficult to put in all this effort when you're getting the rewards and, you know, all the sacrifices that comes with playing Gaelic football at the top level. And then when you're thinking about some of the players that have played for 15, 16 years and they've never really won anything or had the chance just because of where they're born. Well, Mick Mccann is 36 years old and he is still bossing it for Antrim football. They lost the legend that is Paddy Cunningham last year. And there was probably thoughts out there that Enda McGinney got a good bounce, Enda McGinney and Stephen O'Neill and being the new managers on the scene, and they got a good tune out of the Antrim lads last year, but they backed it up. They bet Fermanagh. They weren't favourites going into that Fermanagh game at the weekend. And I think this bit of this match report from Brendan Crossan will sum it up for you for just how good Mick Mccann is at his age. Tomorrow's Antrim Fermanagh report, so Brendan Crossan from the Irish News. Tomorrow's Antrim Fermanagh report is not so much a match report, but more an appreciation piece on Mick McCann's footballing ability. To do what he's doing at 36 is scandalous. More power to him. So McCann plays a simple in midfield. He controls possession. He's such a big, important player to have in a Division 4 team. Somebody with a cool head. He set up the goal at the weekend for his younger partner in midfield, Kevin Small, who's coming up, and he's very highly rated himself. And he scored a long-range bomb, a point, which he's often doing. I did check in with a recently retired Antrim legend. I'm not going to say who it is. And he swore that Mick Mccann should be nearly first or second on this list. So McCann, you know, it's been verified. He has earned his shot. There's going to be people complaining about players that haven't made the mix here, but Mick Mccann, he came back to the Antrim panel at 34. Lenny Harpison got him back, and he hasn't been able to leave when you've got the likes of Enda McGinley and Stephen O'Neill, you know, driving the ship up there. So that's number 9 on the list. And I know I'm under a bit of time pressure here. So number 7 is Sam Mulroy. He's the Loud captain. There was a couple of Loud players that could have made it here. Kieran Burns played in the AFL and played with DC over the last number of years. He's a very important player to them. But Mulroy is the talisman up front. He's playing more of a wing forward role. He can't play inside the full forward line. He's somebody who broke through at the age of 18, 19 and 2019 and really lit up the league that year. Had a bad injury, missed a good bit of it, and then we've started to see the best of him in the last 2 years. Now, I don't know if it's a coincidence, but in 2021, Sam Mulroy's managers were Mickey Hart, multiple All-Ireland winner. And Jim McGuinness at club level was coaching him at Naomh Martins. He'd been dragged in to coach the Louth team that year. So, Mulroy's career is only going one way. And if Louth are going to get back to where they were in and around 2010, not that we're going to get stuck into that here, they're going to need someone like Sam Mulroy leading the way and scoring points for them. He gets extra points for being a scoring forward. It's so valuable across the board. They're a rare breed, and he's a clutch player. I don't know if you remember the awfully loud game last year, but he nailed some late frees to bring that game to extra time in Park Talton. So Sam Mulroy is number 7 in the list. I'm pretty sure number 8 in the list. Number 7 is Mickey Quinn. We know all about Mickey Quinn. One of the standard drivers in football around the Midlands over the last decade. It's often said that Longford are a qualifier team, and they've pulled out big results over the last 6, 7, 8 years. And one of the main reasons for that is their driving force of Mickey Quinn. He plays centre back. He's a hard man, but he wears white boots, and I really like that about him. He's got all the skill in the world, all the leadership, brings all the quality in the class. Longford have a tough year ahead of them. They got the management team in quite late. Billy O'Loughlin. It's difficult for an inter-county team coming in the off-season, but coming in as late as he did, close to December, it's going to be a tough couple of months. But they have Mickey Quinn. They didn't have him in 2020. He's back now, and he's going to be so important to them. Let us not forget that Mickey Quinn is one of the quickest Irish players to make their debut in the AFL when he was 19 years old with the Essendon Bombers. So this fella has always had the quality. I suppose there was an outside shout in Longford for Darren Gallagher, another quality midfielder, but he just didn't make the cut here. Moving on to...
What colour are your boots, Tommy?
Black. I've World Cups and Copa Mundials this year. I've been keeping it pretty simple the last couple of years.
Who are you playing for, Tommy?
Yes.
I'm living in Clare this year, Ger, so I'm going to be playing my club football in Ger, down in Clare. So I didn't think we were going to be talking about that. It's been a very difficult couple of weeks.
So what happened?
Yeah, nothing really. Just
you've left your home club. It's a wrench.
I left my home club. It's very difficult. Very difficult. Yeah, Aisling, I know you haven't done it. You're up and down, and you're still travelling back to me to play your club football. Yeah, I guess I'm I don't know, I'm not going to out you for how old you are, Ashton, but I've just felt that I'm getting on in years, and I found it very difficult to drive back the 300 or 400 kilometre round trip to play club football in the last 2 years. I've done it for the last 2 years, and I wasn't really giving anything to my club that I wanted to give, and I felt I ended up being not giving my best, and my best not coming out on the pitch. So I'm very lucky to be training with a really good club down here in Clare, and yeah, it's great. Hopefully I'll give that a rattle this year. That's it, Jerry. I wasn't expecting that. I'm getting quite emotional here. I had to leave my club WhatsApp group a few weeks ago, and yeah, very difficult.
But you feel free now?
I don't know if there's a freedom there. I'm definitely enthused and excited to be training very close to where I'm living. And I've never done that. I've always travelled home, whether it be from Dublin to Meath, which doesn't sound that long, but when you don't drive and you're relying on your mates for lifts or buses at 11 o'clock at night to get home for training, that was never easy. So, I'm excited to be playing football up the road from where I'm living at the minute. So that's brilliant. And
we expect you to feature for Colm Collins next year. You're going to give it a year, and then
I haven't switched my allegiance at county level. I'm only joking. No, I don't think that's going to happen, Jaron. Well, we're not starting that. I think poor Andy McEntee has heard enough of my cries to get picked from Meath over the last 10 years.
Well, we can move it. I mean, look, the bit's the bit, Tommy.
I never heard them, Tommy.
Oh, God, Jesus. Let's please not do that. Can I move on to my list, please?
Quickly, yeah. We've embarrassed you there. Colm Collins is on the phone going, all right, okay, it's official now. It's public. We can bring you in.
Yeah, I'd say he's delighted.
Heaven knows you've done enough work, Go on.
Let's move on. Okay, so Limerick's joint captain Ian Corbett is next on the list. He's number 6. I actually had him up higher, but I made a late change to my list last night. He's their only All-Star nominee since John Galvin back in 2010. He's a Newcastle West star who've been playing really well in club football in Limerick over the last couple of years. When I say he's a driving force from half back, it sounds like a cliche, but he really is. This guy is just such quality. I'm going to share a clip in a little while. Philly Wolfe put it up, who's involved in county football this year. He's from Kildare. Philly Wolfe put up a couple of years ago and said, if this was a Division 1 footballer who played this pass, we'd be talking about it all year long. It was in Division 3 or 4 game 2 years ago. And it was Corbett collecting the ball in the half-forward line. He leans back a la Kieran MacDonald, but it's on his right foot, and just drifts this outside of the boot pass over the defenders into an on-rushing path of one of his forwards, and it ends up as a goal. So Ian Corbett, Massive footballer. He chips in with scores in big games, and he'd often end up in the forwards too for Limerick. There's good stuff happening in Limerick under Billy Lee. If we were doing a Munster depth chart, they'd be close to Cork. I think Clare close to number 2 at the minute down there. I don't know where Tipperary are. They're in and around that spot as well. So it's very, very tight in Munster at the minute. Jack Neville put it in the Limerick Post back in 2020. If Ian Corbett was born 20 kilometres to the west, we'd be talking about him every week for his exploits with Kerry. So it's one of these quirks of where you're born, but that's never stopped Ian Corbett from turning up and delivering for Limerick over the last decade. Did I mention he was one of their only All-Star nominees since John Galvin?
You did, yeah.
Yeah, so there we go. So let's move on to the top 5.
Okay,
right?
Okay. Quickly now.
Some people would say that this man, Conor Sweeney, should be number 1 on the list. I have him number 5, which might be controversial.
You have him 4, but go on.
He's one of the best forwards in the division. All-Star in 2020. Clutch forward. The Tip will really, really miss Michael Quinn this year, but I think Conor Sweeney will miss him too, because it's tough enough to have one marquee forward in this grade. To have 2 is such an addition for Tipperary. So Quinn is going to be a huge loss this year. Sweeney's capable of just turning up and doing his job and kicking the frees or kicking a couple of points from play, but he's also capable of the audacious. And the year Munster went on and he captained them to that Munster title in 2020. I don't know if you remember his outside of the left boot sideline from about 45, 50 yards to level the game against Limerick. Limerick really should have beaten them that day, but Sweeney dragged it to extra time and they went on to win. Number 4 is Gerald Mckiernan, somebody else who could possibly be number 1 on this list. He is a colossus of a man. He has always done it for Cavan and he will always do it for Cavan. It was actually a massive surprise that he wasn't starting at the weekend. And chatting to a couple of Cavan people, they were surprised themselves because Gerald Mckiernan does not miss matches for Cavan. Whether it be fetching kickouts in midfield or driving bombs over the bar from 50 yards, Mckiernan has always done it. He inspired them to victory against Donegal in that Ulster final. Don't forget that he put that ball in on top of Sean Patton that led to the goal. So Mckiernan, for far too long, has had to do it on his own. And over the last couple of years, Cavan have really developed. They've brought their young players on and they've made a massive difference. So Gerald Mckiernan in there. Actually, I actually skipped it. Gerald Mckiernan was a bit lower. Pádraig Faulkner was actually number 4.
I was going to say, where's
the King's Cup man? Yeah.
Faulkner.
So Faulkner is probably one of the best fullbacks in the country. There's no getting away from that. Mm-hmm. Didn't have a great year last year, but none of the Cavan players did. They had a tough year coming off the back of their Ulster title. They actually had 4 All-Stars, so neither of the 2 Galligans are in this list. And that was tough for me. Raymond Galligan is a phenomenal goalkeeper, such a huge asset, as we mentioned, Mark Jackson earlier on in goals. A goalkeeper that can add frees from 50, 60 yards. He's unbelievable. And he also played in the forwards before. He actually could have made it as one of the forwards a couple of years ago. So he didn't make the list. And Thomas Galligan is one of my favourite footballers in the country. He's a hero footballer. He's the footballer that'll turn up and win a game for you in the last couple of minutes and do all the job that needs to be done in midfield as well. He can do everything. So Thomas Galligan was unlucky not to make the cut here. Kieran Holler-Brady from Cavan was unlucky not to make the cut. Patrick Lynch is a footballer. Martin Riley.
I like Martin. I think he's a good footballer and he's underrated as well.
Martin Riley definitely is underrated, and I'm starting to regret now not having a third Cavan footballer on this list, Aisling. But Kieran Holler-Brady could have been in the mix too. He was a massive loss to Cavan last year. He was probably one of their best players in 2020. And Patrick Lynch is the player we're watching this year, Ger. He's a corner forward, quality, kicked 4 points against Leitrim from play at the weekend, and he's very highly rated in Cavan. So he's somebody we're looking at. I realised that I've kind of mixed up my list here a little bit, so apologies about that. I had Faulkner 5, Sweeney 4, Mckiernan 3. So we've gone through them.
Why you both love Cavan? Like you should hate each other as rivals. That's one of the quirks of the provincial system is that me don't play Cavan enough in your lifetime anyway. But actually there should be an intense rivalry there where you all hate Cavan because they're more successful historically. I suppose maybe you had your at-bat.
They really have been over the last decade, especially at underage level. And they obviously delivered now with their Ulster title in the last 2 years. Like
Shane says, no Galligans, no party.
No, who?
I don't make the rules.
No Galligan.
Oh, no Galligans, no party. Shane's spot on. Shane knows. Shane usually delivers on a Friday, Jaren says no Gilroy, no party.
Well, he's right about that too.
He is right about that. So look, I've left off 2 Cavan All-Stars. Come at me. My garden's in Cavan. Say whatever you want about me. I'm not backing down on that. I do have a King's Cup man in there in Pádraig Faulkner, who, if he regains his All-Star form, Cavan will go far this year in Ulster again. Like there shouldn't be a Division 4 team. There should be a Division 2 team really. Like so, it's a bit of an outlier that Cavan are in this list. This one is a controversial one because I went outside of Owen's power rankings. He had Westmeath down around 15. I have John Hesson as my number 2 in this. He's their talisman. the one true shame of the last decade is that people haven't seen enough of John Hesson. He's one of my favourite footballers.
Brilliant.
And just, Ashton, like we both remember that comeback that Westmeath pulled off against Meath when Meath were 8-9 points up in the Leinster Championship in 2015 or 2016. I can't remember
They
the
never
year.
stopped talking about it.
Yeah, and I do have
Fair play to them.
Westmeath.
Keep going, lads. It's obviously getting under the Meath skin.
Oh, it absolutely has. And yeah, I've heard Adrian Barry going on about it a few times as well. So, but that comeback, it gave us that iconic image of John Hesson diving out and celebrating that unbelievable goal he scored to Bury Meath that day. And he deserves that, because John Hesson is one of the players. I was actually listening back to a clip, and we must actually play it. The audio quality is good. It was a college documentary that I'd done, and actually Will O'Callaghan had played it on Midlands back in 2012. Myself and Eamon Dunn who had done it. But we spoke to John Hesson about championship structures, and he is talking about the exact same stuff that we're talking about now. It's actually pretty similar to Proposal A at the minute and Proposal B. And Hesson was crying out for the championship to be changed, and the championship needed to be changed.
Green and red, not A and B. You're 6 months
green
out
and
there,
red.
Tommy.
Sorry, yeah, green and red. I've it's broken me that. But anyways, Hesson is the type of footballer that needed this to happen over the last decade. He needed to be playing more football at the top level. Westmeath have done as well as anyone over the last decade, and have suffered as much as anyone. They've lost multiple Leinster finals to Dublin and have got there and earned their right to get there over the years. Hesson can play midfield, probably more of a full forward nowadays, or a half forward at times. Do you remember the 2-16 he scored for Lomans at club level a couple of years ago? He can rack up huge scores, lethal from frees, can, like Mckiernan, not as big a man, but can fetch kickouts out of the sky. And just to give it to you, he's a wonderful footballer who is also a sow of a man. And that's a compliment that I would say for very few footballers in the country. Darren Hughes is another footballer who I describe as a sow. And a sow can only be somebody who combines their class footballing ability with farming. And there aren't many of them around at the minute. So Hesson deserves that. He can carry a team, and that's probably one of the reasons why. And in my opinion, and I know I'm nearly finished here and I've gone over time, Niall Murphy is the best footballer outside the top counties in the country at the minute, and Sligo are blessed to have him. He's back from his travels, while Tony McEntee does not have Red Oak Murphy, and he's probably, as he said to us before, missing and losing players to hurling or soccer or rugby,
specifically
in
soccer.
Sligo. Yeah. He still has Niall Murphy, who could have gone to the AFL. Like, this is a guy who won a Sigerson with DCU back in 2015. He played international rules. Like, again, like John Hesson, Ger, when we've seen Niall Murphy on TV, it's been as Sligo getting hockeyed by Galway or Mayo. And there's these moments, if you look on YouTube, there's these moments where Niall Murphy does something in that game, and it's absolutely outrageous. He points to the outside of his boot, taking on 5 or 6 players and putting them over the bar. He's well built, athletic, can play midfield, is often dragged out to midfield because Sligo need him out there, but he really is one of the best full forwards in the game. Physically imposing, a fine finisher. He's really got it all. He's often double marked, treble marked, and you can still expect Niall Murphy to rack up huge scores no matter what. So even against the highest quality defenders, I know Mayo and Galway find him a handful. Actually, an opposition analyst from another county, not that I've mentioned one, got in touch last night and said they have trouble with Niall Murphy whenever they face him, like that he is the player that causes them so many headaches. So Niall Murphy, congrats. You have made number one on this official top 10 footballers in the bottom 2 divisions.
We don't know yet if there will be an All-Stars or how the All-Stars are going to reflect what happens in the Tailteann Cup. And the Tailteann Cup is going to be over like blink and you miss it for a lot of teams, right?
It really is. And there should be an award system for this. And there should be, more around the Tailteann Cup here. And there needs to be more coverage. We got a lot of stick. Not a lot of stick. We got a bit of stick on the football pod this week that we ended up spending 40 minutes on Dublin. And that was kind of hurting me going through it. But you couldn't get away from the fact that Dublin, were beaten at the weekend in the way that they were. And we had Paddy Andrews on the line able to give us the insights on what's going wrong with Dublin and what needs to change. But there needs to be a world and a room where we're talking about this quality in the lower divisions as well. Yeah, just before we go, I got literally 50 comments on Instagram last night with a load of suggestions. So thanks to everyone who melted my brain last night with all of them and also helped me, back up my list. And just to shout out that Tomas McCarthy down at WLR-FM in Waterford was given a shout for Conor Murray from Waterford. And Tom O'Connell is another young footballer down in Waterford that they're really excited about. He's an under 20 who scored a hat-trick of goals against Clare in the Munster Championship last year.
Is there anybody you haven't mentioned here, Tommy?
They're just that's it. That's all I'm leaving.
Okay.
Could you have had me?
Hopefully I'll fit you in there.
Yeah, definitely. Meath are not in the top. Well, if it was non-top 10, absolutely. But then it would have been 10 Meath players.
Yeah, I don't know if it would have been, but yeah. that's my list, lads. So I hope you enjoyed it.
Okay. And do you want to take this opportunity to apologise to James O'Donoghue for butchering his brilliant Twitter joke at the start of the podcast this week? I was like, oh, did you really not? And I'm like, oh no, and you just ruined it.
Yeah.
Like, anytime you're explaining a joke, I just want to tell this, particularly some of our other colleagues out there, anytime you explain someone's joke, you ruin it. It's a rule. Don't ask people about their jokes because it ruins it. All right?
Yeah. No, it's so true. It's so true. And
were you joking when you were asking them, Tommy? Were you? Was that what you were doing?
Yeah, you see, Darren, I'm still quite a rookie. I'm still quite a rookie at this broadcasting crack.
16 minutes past 8 this morning. You've gone way over. Tommy producing his own slots takes an extra 6 minutes and eats into all the rest of the stuff. So we actually don't have time to play the clip right now of the podcast. We'll have to come back to that a little bit later. How's that sound, Tommy?
Sorry, lads, that's my bad. But you can listen to the football pod after OTB AM if you want. You can get it in anywhere in your app store in the podcast. So
there you go.
Just search for the football pod.
Always be closing. What colour boots do you wear, Ash?
Oh no, I thought I got away with that. They're white.
I mean, why wouldn't you wear white boots? Tommy is trying to be post old school cool here, and I don't know, maybe he's too embarrassed now with his new teammates to go in wearing anything fancy. He's got to prove himself.
I know, I'm white boots and I'm a corner forward, so it's not good. I get all the slack.
a proper combination. Right, we're going to take a quick break. 087 9180 180 is the WhatsApp number if you want to get in touch with us. We'd love to hear from you. OTB AM is brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors.